America is watching. Not a minute was given. Not a second to breathe. And yet, one line stopped the storm. You are about to step inside a hearing that millions have already called unforgettable. Donald Trump cut her off. Clarence Thomas stepped in. J.D. Vance and Marjorie Taylor Greene tried to pile on. And through it all, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett faced them without flinching, without folding, without fear. This isn't just another clash in Washington. This is about whether justice still means anything when power thinks it can rewrite the rules. When the people at the top believe they can silence questions, and when one voice refuses to be silenced, ask yourself, if the highest court bends, if leaders mock the law, where does that leave the American people? We're not here to replay headlines. We're here to see the moment as it happened. The rapid-fire questions, the interruptions, the laughter when Greene stumbled, the silence when Crockett read the Constitution back to them word for word. And you, yes, you are part of this. Because the fight for truth isn't just on that stage. It's in every home, every state, every screen right now. So before we begin, tell us, where are you watching from? Texas, California, New York? Drop it in the comments and let this room know that justice is not just a debate in D.C. It's a demand across America. One line ended their attack. One question still echoes. And in the next hour, you'll hear it all. If you're ready for the receipts, the silence, and the truth, let's go. The room was already tense before a single word was spoken. Cameras clicked. Reporters leaned forward. Millions of viewers tuned in across the country, waiting to see if this hearing would be just another routine clash or something history would remember. Donald Trump did not wait. He leaned across the microphone, eyes narrowing, and fired the first shot before the chair had even finished her introduction. Answer now, no delay. Are you even a legal genius? Do you think you represent justice? His words cut like a blade through the chamber. He didn't grant her a minute, not even a second. It was rapid fire before the proceedings had truly begun. The weight of the office he once held pressed against the table, his voice booming, daring Crockett to falter. But Jasmine Crockett didn't. She sat still, her spine straight, her face calm. She did not raise her hand. She did not protest. She let the words fall into the air one after another. And then she gave him what he never expected, silence. 6 seconds. 6 seconds of absolute stillness. In politics, silence can be louder than shouting. The cameras caught every flicker, every beat of tension that formed in the air. Trump shifted in his seat. Some on the Republican bench smirked, thinking she had no reply. Others looked uncertain, realizing the silence was intentional, deliberate, heavy. She finally spoke, her voice low but steady. You didn't give me time, but America gave me a duty. The chamber stirred. It was not the eruption Trump's allies expected. It was not anger, not fluster. It was discipline, measured restraint, the kind that made silence itself an indictment. And in that moment, Crockett was no longer reacting to Trump. She was framing the battle on her own terms. He pounced again, sensing control slipping. Don't lecture me about duty. You stand here pretending you're above the Supreme Court. Do you think you're smarter than justice itself? The words were barbed, designed to wound. To corner. The crowd in the gallery shifted, whispers spreading, pens scratching. And again, Crockett did not leap to defend herself. She leaned forward, folded her hands, and asked him calmly, define justice. The room froze because it was not an answer. It was a question that turned his own challenge back on him. Trump blinked, searching for words, as though unprepared for a counter-punch so simple. The chair's gavel tapped, but the noise of the chamber drowned it out. Across America, those watching leaned closer to their screens. This wasn't a back and forth. This was a duel in which one side was swinging wildly and the other was standing firm, letting the blows exhaust themselves. Trump tried again, louder now, as if volume could restore the balance. You don't speak for the Constitution. You don't represent the law. You're a politician, that's all. And there, for the first time, another voice entered, a deeper one, more deliberate. Clarence Thomas, breaking the usual decorum of a justice sitting silently at such hearings, leaned into his microphone. His tone was solemn, authoritative. Congresswoman, the court interprets law, not you. That is our role. Gasps rippled across the chamber. A Supreme Court justice defending Trump in real time. It was the shield Trump had been waiting for. The weight of judicial authority pressing down meant to silence her once and for all. Crockett did not flinch. She looked directly at Thomas and then at Trump before speaking with the same measured calm. The court interprets law. Congress writes it. The people live under it. That's not theater. That's the Constitution. Silence again. This time, not hers, but theirs. Even Trump did not cut her off. The gavel was raised, the chair trying to restore order, but the moment had already been carved. For the first time in this hearing, the power dynamic shifted. Crockett had answered Trump's rapid assault with stillness and Thomas's judicial gravity with a reminder of the written framework that bound them all. Reporters scribbled furiously. Social feeds lit up with clips replayed in seconds. Millions at home exchanged glances, whispers, and text messages. A line had been drawn, and Crockett was not on the defensive side of it. But Trump was not done. He straightened his tie, leaned forward again, and slammed his palm against the desk. You want to play with the law? You want to pretend you're more than what you are? Then answer me now. The chair pounded the gavel, but Trump overpowered it. His words echoed through the hall. He was demanding, pressing, desperate to force her back under the weight of his questions. And Crockett, still unshaken, still calm, whispered into the microphone with precision. I don't need more time. The truth doesn't need time. The entire chamber erupted, not with applause, not with cheers, but with a stunned collective silence that said more than noise ever could. Outside, the media vans hummed, feeds streaming live to every screen across the country. Hashtags began forming, though no one could have planned it. Number no time but truth. The first part of the battle had been fought, not with volume, not with interruptions, but with silence, and with words that carried the weight of restraint. And as the gavel fell once more, trying to bring order, Trump leaned forward again, this time faster, sharper, determined to crush that silence with another barrage. And the next words he fired would come in rapid succession, faster than before. Forcing Crockett to withstand 3 questions in 20 seconds. Trump's hand was still pressed against the table when the gavel fell again. The sound echoed once, twice, but he didn't yield. His voice rose above the order, fierce and relentless, as if silence itself were his enemy. You claim to represent justice, don't you? Answer me yes or no. The words landed like bullets. The room tightened, shoulders stiffening, pens froze in midair. Crockett had just closed the first exchange with calm restraint. But now Trump wasn't giving her even that. He went on faster. Do you think you're smarter than the court? Tell us right now. No pause, no breath. Reporters barely kept pace with their notes. His third question slammed down before the first was finished. Are you above the very Constitution you swore to uphold? 3 questions, 20 seconds, 1 barrage. Every camera in the room shifted to Crockett. The tension wasn't only in the words. It was in the denial of space, in the refusal to let her breathe, to let her measure a reply. Trump's strategy was clear. Overwhelm, corner, drown her in the sound of his authority. But Crockett didn't meet him with panic. She sat back slightly in her chair, hands still folded, eyes steady on him. And for the second time in less than 5 minutes, she answered with the rarest weapon in Washington's silence. 5 seconds passed. 6, 7. Every second felt like a minute. Screams across the country caught the stillness, her calm face, his impatient tapping fingers, the restless shuffle of aides behind him. To the untrained eye, it might have looked like hesitation, but to millions watching, it was obvious she was letting his words hang heavy, letting them twist and echo until they lost their force. Finally, she leaned toward the microphone. Her voice was measured, deliberate. You asked me 3 questions. Let me return just one to you. What is justice, Mr. Trump? Define it. The chamber hushed again. A congresswoman had just flipped the interrogation into an exam. Not for herself, but for the man trying to bury her under his questions. Trump's mouth opened, then shut. For a fleeting moment, he seemed caught between bluster and definition. His allies behind him shifted uneasily, sensing the trap. If he answered, he gave her ground. If he dodged, the silence would speak louder than any definition. He tried to push past it, to brush away the challenge. This isn't about definitions. This is about you pretending to be a lawyer to the world. Crockett raised an eyebrow, the faintest trace of a smile forming. She let him speak, then replied simply, You called me to answer. I did. The law isn't about speed. It's about truth. And truth doesn't come from who shouts the loudest. It comes from what stands when the shouting ends. Gasps whispered through the gallery. The chair's gavel struck again, this time not to silence her, but to restore balance. As murmurs rippled through the chamber, Trump pressed on, unwilling to concede. So, you're not denying it? You think you stand above the court? You think you represent the law better than the men and women appointed for life? Before Crockett could answer, another voice broke through. It was sharp, cutting from the far right of the D's. J.D. Vance leaned into his microphone, voice low, but dripping with disdain. She's not here for the truth. She's here for theater, and everyone knows it. The shot was meant to shield Trump, to echo the idea that Crockett was grandstanding. But it landed differently. Viewers at home saw not one but 2 men piling on, both trying to force silence on a woman who had just cited the Constitution back at them. Crockett turned her head toward Vance, her calm unbroken. She slid a single sheet of paper forward on her desk, its header bold, unmistakable. Internal Memorandum, Judicial Coordination. The camera caught it instantly, lenses zooming in. If this is theater, she said, her voice even, then why does this document carry your name? The room gasped. It wasn't shouting. It wasn't anger. It was a line spoken like a scalpel, slicing through the noise. Vance shifted in his seat, eyes narrowing, lips pressed tight. He muttered something about context, but the damage was already done. Every viewer, every reporter saw the memo, saw the name. The receipt was on the table. Trump tried to claw the moment back, slamming his hand once more. You think this proves anything? You think words on a page can outweigh the court itself? Crockett didn't blink. She leaned forward again, her voice calm as if reading scripture. The Constitution is also words on a page, and it has outweighed kings, presidents, and courts for nearly 250 years. Silence. Not hers this time. Theirs. Millions at home leaned closer to their screens. Phones lit up. Clips spread faster than captions could be written. A battle that began as Trump's rapid fire had become something else entirely. A duel of definitions of authority, of who truly spoke for justice. And yet, even as Trump paused, recalculating, Crockett wasn't finished. She knew another voice was waiting. Clarence Thomas, who had already intervened once, shifted in his chair, preparing to enter the fray again. His presence loomed like a shadow across the chamber. his authority heavy, his words about to fall like iron. The first round of rapid fire had ended, but the next strike was coming, not from Trump this time, but from the bench itself. The silence after Crockett's last line was heavy. Trump leaned back, his hands still hovering above the desk, as if he just realized the weight of the words she'd thrown at him. But the pause didn't last long. A deeper voice entered, steady, deliberate, designed to cut through. Congresswoman Clarence Thomas began, his tone slow, solemn, carrying the authority of decades on the bench. You are mistaken. The Constitution does not grant you the role of interpreter. That belongs to the court and the court alone. The chamber stiffened. Cameras turned instantly toward him. This was not a routine intervention. Justices almost never spoke in these hearings. And yet Thomas's voice now filled the room like an immovable wall, shielding Trump with the weight of judicial power. Crockett turned toward him, her expression unchanged. She didn't rush. She didn't flinch. She waited until the murmurs died down and then spoke into the microphone with clarity. The Constitution does not belong to the court, Justice Thomas. It belongs to the people. Congress writes the laws. The court interprets them, but neither branch is above the words written in that document. Not yours, not mine. Gasps broke out. The audacity of speaking those words to a Supreme Court justice was clear. And yet her tone wasn't defiant for its own sake. It was steady, rooted in the very framework Thomas had invoked. Thomas narrowed his eyes, leaning forward. And who decides when Congress oversteps? Who ensures that the passions of politics do not trample the law? That is our duty, and it has been for generations. Crockett met his gaze without hesitation. And who ensures the court does not trample the people? That is our duty, and it has been since the first day this republic was formed. The chamber erupted into whispers, reporters scribbling furiously. Thomas pressed his lips together, his jaw tightening. He had expected a retreat. Instead, he had found a rival standing firm with constitutional text at her side. Trump tried to interject, waving his hand. This is ridiculous. But Crockett cut back, not raising her voice, but sharpening it like a blade. Ridiculous. What's ridiculous is a system where one branch believes it can silence another. What's dangerous is pretending accountability doesn't apply once you put on a robe. The room froze. It was no longer just Trump versus Crockett. It was Crockett staring down a justice of the Supreme Court. And millions of Americans watching from their homes felt that shift instantly. Thomas tried again, slower now, as if choosing his words more carefully. Congresswoman, judicial independence is not a game. Without it, we have no rule of law. Crockett nodded slightly, acknowledging the principle, but her reply came swift. Judicial independence is not immunity. Without accountability, you don't have the rule of law. You have the rule of privilege. That line landed like a hammer. Murmurs turned into gasps. Even some on Trump's side stiffened, unwilling to meet the cameras. For a fleeting second, the justice said nothing. And Crockett seized that silence. She reached down, slid another document across her desk. A photocopy. Its title bold: Flight Log. Private Jet Manifest. Independence. Justice Thomas is not flying to a private island on a jet paid for by men who have cases before your court. Independence is not hiding those flights from disclosure forms. If you want to speak of duty, then explain to the American people why this log exists. The gallery erupted. Reporters lifted cameras. Thomas shifted in his chair, his eyes narrowing but his lips sealed. He knew the weight of the accusation. He knew the cameras were catching every flicker on his face. Trump leaned forward again, trying desperately to redirect. This is a smear job. This is beneath Congress. You think this circus proves anything? Crockett turned back to him, her voice calm but firm. You asked if I was smarter than the court. I don't have to be. The truth is smarter than all of us, and right now it is speaking louder than your interruptions. 6 seconds of silence followed. 6 seconds where neither Trump nor Thomas answered. The stillness was suffocating and millions watching at home felt it too. But the moment wasn't finished because when silence stretches too long, someone always tries to fill it. And that someone this time was J.D. Vance. He leaned in, smirking, his voice dripping with contempt. She's not holding the law. She's holding theater. And the people see right through it. The words broke the silence, shifting the attention once again. But this time, it wasn't just Trump's fight. Another ally had stepped in, and Crockett was about to face him head-on. The gavel struck, but the energy in the chamber was already surging toward the next clash. The stillness Thomas left behind didn't last. It was broken by the sharp, almost mocking tone of J.D. Vance. He leaned toward his microphone, smirk curling across his face. "She's not holding the law," he said, voice thick with disdain. "She's holding theater and the people see right through it." His words were designed to puncture, to reduce her stance to performance. A chuckle rose from one or two mega allies nearby, eager for a release from the tension that had just suffocated the chamber. But it didn't last long. Crockett didn't flinch. She turned her head slowly, fixing her eyes on Vance. The smirk faded as she slid a single folder across her desk and opened it with deliberate care. The camera zoomed in. The header at the top of the document was unmistakable. Judicial Coordination Memorandum, and beneath it, a name, his name. "If this is theater," Crockett said evenly, her voice carrying the weight of evidence, "then tell us why this memo carries your signature." The chamber erupted. Gasps, whispers, camera shutters clicking like thunder. Vance shifted, his smirk collapsing into a tight line. He tried to wave it off, muttering, taken out of context, but the words rang hollow under the glare of every lens in the room. Crockett pressed, her tone sharpened. "This document outlines direct contact with individuals attempting to influence court scheduling. You called me theater, but here your name appears in black and white attached to manipulation. Which is the real show, Senator?" The audience inside the chamber leaned forward. Reporters' pens scratched furiously. Across the nation, millions of viewers watching on live feeds knew they were seeing something extraordinary. A senator caught in the web of his own denial. Vance tried to push back. "This is a smear. This is politics. Everyone here knows memos get tossed around all the time." Crockett's reply was cold, surgical. "Then you'll have no problem explaining why this one dated 2 weeks before a ruling favorable to your donors bears your approval mark. Coincidence or coordination?" The silence that followed wasn't just his. It was the silence of allies unsure if they should leap to defend him or stay seated. Cameras captured his shifting posture, his tightening jaw. The so-called theater had become his trial. Trump leaned forward trying to pull Vance from the flames. "This is nonsense. He's here to serve the people, not your agenda. Stop trying to paint everyone as corrupt just because you want a headline." Crockett turned back to Trump without raising her voice. "Headlines? I don't need headlines. The people don't need headlines. They need honesty. And every page of these memos, these logs, these financial records." She tapped the folder with her finger. "Tell a story no headline can hide." The words landed like a hammer. Vance leaned back, his silence speaking louder than any defense. The image of his name on that memo would be replayed across every news outlet by evening. Reporters in the chamber exchanged glances, one whispering audibly enough to be picked up by a microphone. She just cornered him. Trump's face hardened. He could see control slipping again. First from his rapid fire, then from Thomas's intervention, now from Vance's collapse under paper evidence. The former president straightened his tie, preparing his next line of attack. Crockett, sensing the shift, did not gloat. She didn't need to. Her calm posture itself was the indictment. Her strength was not in the volume of her words, but in the precision of her timing. The gavel struck, but the noise of the chamber swallowed it. The chair's call for order was barely audible under the collective buzz of disbelief, shock, and the feverish clicking of cameras. J.D. Vance sat motionless, his eyes fixed downward, avoiding the cameras. Trump glanced at him, irritation flashing across his face. This wasn't how the script was supposed to go. His allies were supposed to shield him, not sink beside him. So Trump did what Trump always does when allies falter. He doubled down. He leaned into his microphone again, louder this time, his voice echoing across the hall. You think these pieces of paper make you powerful? You think you're the voice of the law? Let's be clear. You're nothing without the court. You are not the Constitution. You are not justice. You are a politician on borrowed time. The final words hung like smoke in the air, bitter and heavy. Crockett's eyes narrowed slightly. Her reply did not come instantly. She let the accusation breathe. Let it linger. And then she said, almost whispering, the Constitution is not borrowed. It's owned by the people, not by you, not by me, and certainly not by anyone who hides behind a robe or a title. The chamber stirred again. Trump's words had been met and overturned, not with volume, but with a statement so sharp it cut straight through, and as she finished, her gaze locked directly on him, the battle line redrawn. This was no longer about defending herself. It was about exposing the illusion that power could silence accountability. The chair raised the gavel once more, calling for order. But Trump wasn't finished. His jaw set, his voice rising, preparing to launch another strike. The rapid fire was coming again. This time, not just questions, but accusations aimed straight at Crockett's legitimacy. Her right to even sit at that table. The chamber braced itself. The next round was about to begin. The gavel's echo had barely faded when Trump leaned forward, his face set hard, voice booming so that no one could ignore him. You sit there and pretend you have the authority of the law. But let me ask you straight. Do you think you're some kind of legal genius? Do you believe you represent justice itself? The questions tumbled out in rapid succession, not waiting for replies, his tone sharpened with each one, pressing the accusation deeper. Because let me tell you, Congress does not speak for the Constitution. The court does. The court decides. You are nothing more than a politician hiding behind paper and words. Every camera in the chamber caught the fury in his eyes. The jabbing finger that punctuated each phrase. His allies leaned in, nodding, feeding off the momentum of his words. But Jasmine Crockett did not flinch. She didn't answer immediately. She didn't fight to cut in. Instead, she leaned back, hands folded, her silence drawing every eye. 5 seconds passed. 6, 7, and then she spoke slow, deliberate. Each word chosen like a stone set in place. Mr. Trump, you keep asking if I think I'm a genius. I don't. I think the law is smarter than any of us, and it is not yours to grant or to take away. The chamber stirred. Reporter pens scratched. Trump blinked, clearly not expecting humility to be wielded as a weapon. He tried again louder. So you claim you're not above us? Then admit it. You are overstepping, pretending to be the court. That's why this whole charade is happening. Crockett leaned forward, her voice still calm. You mistake accountability for ambition. Asking questions is not pretending to be the court. It is fulfilling the duty the people sent me here to do. Trump slammed his palm on the desk. Duty. Don't lecture me about duty. I carried this nation on my back while you were nowhere. You think you represent the people? You think you represent the Constitution? Crockett's eyes narrowed, her voice cutting through his volume with surgical precision. The Constitution doesn't need representation. It needs respect. And respect is shown not by shouting it down, but by living under it. 6 seconds of silence followed. This time, the silence belonged to Trump. The crowd shifted uneasily. His allies whispered, but none spoke aloud. Across America, millions leaned closer to their screens, waiting to see if he would recover. He straightened his tie, forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. You think you've won something here? You've proved nothing. Words are just words. Crockett's reply was immediate, unyielding. Words are the foundation of law. They bind presidents. They bind justices. They bind Congress. They even bind you, and that's why you keep trying to shout them down, because you know they outlast you. Reporters gasped. The line would be quoted in headlines within the hour. Trump's jaw clenched. His hand hovered as if to slam the desk again, but he pulled back, unwilling to give her another silent victory. The chair struck the gavel, but order wasn't returning. The air was electric, charged, every word now a live wire. Crockett adjusted her papers, her voice steady, almost softer now, but cutting deeper. You ask me if I represent justice. No one person can. But when you mock the law, when you twist it for power, when the highest offices treat it like theater, then yes, someone must stand and remind you. Justice is not a performance. It's a promise. The chamber fell still. Even those who had smirked moments before shifted in their seats, unsure of where to look. Trump exhaled sharply, but for the first time since the hearing began, he didn't respond immediately. He let the silence hang, trying to mask hesitation with composure. And into that silence, another voice pierced through, shrill, sharp, eager to reclaim the stage. Marjorie Taylor Greene. She leaned toward her microphone, waving her hand with theatrical frustration. This is absurd. She's grandstanding, lecturing all of us like she's some kind of saint. Somebody needs to remind her she's not the Constitution. Laughter rippled, not with her, but at her. The tension cracked just enough for a new kind of reaction. Some reporters stifled chuckles, others shook their heads. Trump turned toward Greene, half smiling, half grateful for the distraction. But Crockett simply watched, her calm unbroken, as if already knowing that the next exchange would turn even this interruption into another moment of exposure. The gavel struck again, calling for order, but the order was gone. The chamber was already pivoting toward a new clash. This time, not Trump, not Thomas, not Vance, but Greene. The chamber had been silent after Crockett's last words. Trump visibly searching for his next line, but the stillness didn't last. It cracked under the unmistakable voice of Marjorie Taylor Greene. Shrill, impatient, she leaned into her microphone, cutting through the moment like a jagged edge. This is absurd, she shouted. She's grandstanding, lecturing us like she's some kind of saint. Somebody needs to remind her she is not the Constitution. The outburst landed awkwardly. A few MAGA allies clapped weakly, but most of the chamber exchanged glances. The timing was off. The tone was off. Even reporters smirked, their pens pausing mid-sentence. Greene wasn't finished. She jabbed her finger toward Crockett, her voice rising. Do you even know what you're saying? Is the Constitution even binding on Congress? Or do you just pick the parts you like? The words hung in the air for half a second before the gallery erupted in laughter. Not applause, not outrage, laughter. The question was so clumsy, so legally incoherent that even those who had opposed Crockett earlier couldn't suppress a smile. One reporter near the front was caught on camera whispering, "Did she really just ask that?" Crockett didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She let the laughter ripple through the chamber, waited until it began to subside, and then leaned forward. Her voice was calm, but her words struck with precision. Yes, Congresswoman Greene. The Constitution is binding on Congress. It's binding on every branch of government, including you. A few chuckles turned into applause from the gallery. The chair pounded the gavel, but the sound was drowned out by murmurs and laughter echoing across the room. Green's face flushed red. She leaned closer, undeterred, grasping for control. You think you're clever, don't you? But the people see through this. They know you're twisting the law. They know you're pretending to be something you're not. Crockett raised a sheet of paper, sliding it into the camera's view. The bold heading read, Campa Finance Disclosures. I pretend nothing, she said, her tone steady. But perhaps you can explain why your campaign received undisclosed contributions routed through a lobbying group under investigation. Contributions you failed to report in full. Should we believe that was also just a mistake? The laughter stopped. The room froze. Green's mouth opened, then closed. She shook her head, stammering, That's not true. Those reports are lies. Crockett's finger tapped the page. This isn't a blog post, Congresswoman. This is your own filing signed under penalty of perjury. The only thing missing was transparency. You say I'm pretending to be the Constitution. No, I'm reminding you what the Constitution demands. Accountability. Gasps rippled. Reporters scribbled furiously. A camera zoomed in on Green's pale face, her eyes darting between her papers and the cameras. Trump shifted in his chair, clearly irritated. Green was supposed to be a shield, a distraction, not a liability. Instead, her bluster had turned into ammunition against their side. Green slammed her hand on the desk, her voice cracking with frustration. This is nothing but a smear campaign. You're just jealous because real Americans stand with us, not with you. Crockett's reply was almost too calm, almost too soft, yet it carried like thunder. Real Americans stand with the truth, and they are watching right now to see whether the people they elected can answer simple questions about the law or hide behind anger when the facts arrive. The gallery went silent. Even those who had laughed minutes earlier leaned forward, feeling the weight of the words. Green had come in swinging, but now she sat back, visibly rattled, her papers trembling slightly in her hand. Crockett lowered the finance disclosures, set them neatly on the desk, and looked directly at the panel before her. Accountability is not optional. Not for presidents, not for justices, not for members of Congress. The cameras captured her steady gaze, her unbroken calm. Green, by contrast, shifted awkwardly, muttering under her breath. Unable to reclaim the stage she had so forcefully tried to seize. The chair tapped the gavel again, this time more gently, as if even order itself had bowed to the shift in power. But the battle wasn't over. From the other end of the Ds, Clarence Thomas adjusted his microphone. His eyes narrowed, his voice prepared. The justice who had already spoken once was about to speak again, and this time the stakes would climb higher. The chamber had just quieted after Green's collapse when Clarence Thomas shifted in his chair. His face was set, voice deep and deliberate, like a man pulling the weight of history into every word. Congresswoman, he began, his tone low, but carrying authority. Judicial independence is not up for debate. The court must be free from political interference, free from the passions that run through this chamber. Without that independence, there is no rule of law. The words landed heavy. Some Republicans nodded firmly. Trump leaned back as if Thomas's intervention had finally restored balance. The justice's calm, measured delivery stood in stark contrast to Green's chaos. For a moment, it felt like he had reclaimed the gravity of the room, but Jasmine Crockett was not moved. She adjusted the stack of papers before her, then looked Thomas directly in the eye. Her reply came swiftly without hesitation. Judicial independence is not immunity, Justice Thomas. Independence does not mean secrecy. It does not mean gifts or flights or favors left off disclosure forms. Without accountability, there is no rule of law, only privilege. The chamber stirred. A wave of murmurs rolled through the gallery. Thomas's jaw tightened. "Those are accusations without merit," he said, his voice firm. "The court has withstood challenges for centuries. It will withstand this, too." Crockett didn't raise her voice. She simply reached for a folder, slid a single page forward, and let the cameras catch the header. "Internal email, Airline Charter Company." "This is an accusation," she said, her words calm but unyielding. "This is instruction sent from your aide to a private jet company. One line reads, 'Don't log name on manifest.' Date stamped 1 week before your undisclosed flight to the island retreat." The silence that followed was deafening. Thomas shifted slightly, his hands clasping together. He did not lean into the microphone this time. He did not deny. He simply sat, the weight of the evidence pressing against him. Reporters in the chamber scrambled, typing furiously, eyes wide. On screens across America, viewers leaned closer, stunned by the plainness of the proof. Crockett continued, her voice steady as stone. "Independence is not boarding jets paid for by men whose cases come before your court. Independence is not deleting your name from a logbook. That is not independence. That is compromise. And the people deserve to know the difference." Gasps swept the room. Some in the gallery clapped before the gavel slammed down. The chair barked for order, but the electricity couldn't be contained. Thomas's lips parted as if to respond, but no words came. He looked down at the desk before him, the paper sitting like an immovable weight between his authority and her accusation. Trump leaned forward quickly, trying to seize back momentum. "This is nothing but a smear campaign. You think you can embarrass the court with one piece of paper? You think you can rewrite the meaning of justice with this circus?" But his voice sounded thinner now. Strained against the silence of Thomas's non-response. Crockett turned her gaze to Trump, her tone sharpened. "The Constitution is not embarrassed by sunlight. Only those who fear exposure are." The line hit like a thunderclap. Reporters froze, then scribbled it down. Camera zoomed in. Social feeds lit up within seconds. Number sunlight over secrets. For the second time, the gavel struck, calling for order that never truly returned. And as the chamber buzzed with shock and disbelief, another voice, higher and louder, tried to break through the weight of the moment. Marjorie Taylor Greene, once more, waving papers in the air as if noise alone could bury the evidence. But this time, the chamber didn't laugh. They braced because Crockett had already turned her chair, ready to meet Greene head-on. Marjorie Taylor Greene was waving a bundle of papers, her voice rising above the din. "This is nothing but lies, nothing but fabrications. You don't scare me and you don't scare the court." Her words tumbled over each other, shrill and disorganized, more a scream than a statement. She pointed at Crockett, then at the chair, then at the cameras, as if sheer volume could undo the silence Thomas had left behind. "Answer me this, Congresswoman," Greene barked. "If the court makes a ruling, are you saying Congress can just ignore it? Yes or no? Yes or no?" The demand was clumsy, incoherent. Reporters exchanged glances, some stifling laughter. Even a few on Greene's own side shifted in their seats, embarrassed by the spectacle. Crockett didn't move. She let the chaos play out until Greene finally stopped for breath. Then she leaned toward her microphone, her tone cool, surgical. "Congresswoman Greene, I'll answer your question. The answer is no. Congress cannot ignore the court, but tell me, can you ignore your own bank statements?" The room gasped. Cameras zoomed instantly. Greene froze, caught mid-motion, her papers still raised. Crockett slid a folder across her desk, opening it so the front row and cameras could catch the header. Federal Election Commission Campaign Finance Review. "These records," Crockett continued, show undisclosed transfers from a political action committee under investigation for funneling foreign money. That committee donated directly to your campaign. Are you saying these filings are also fabrications? Or did you just forget to disclose them? The gallery erupted. Reporters scrambled, fingers flying across keyboards. Green's face drained of color. She shook her head violently. That's not, those are taken out of context. Crockett didn't raise her voice. She tapped the page with her finger. The context is your signature right here. Dated, notarized. The same Constitution you mocked requires honesty in these disclosures. Do you dispute your own handwriting? A ripple of laughter broke through the chamber. It wasn't cruel. It was incredulous. As if the absurdity of Green's position had finally tipped the room into disbelief. Green's mouth opened and closed, searching for words. This is all politics. You're weaponizing paperwork. Crockett leaned forward, her voice firm but calm. Paperwork is what built our system, Congresswoman. The Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, all paperwork, and every American lives under them. What you call weaponizing paperwork, the rest of us call law. Applause broke out in the gallery. The chair slammed the gavel, but the sound of clapping and murmurs carried over it. Green, red-faced, tried again. You're twisting everything. The people back home don't care about this. They care about real issues. Crockett didn't miss a beat. The people back home care about integrity. They care about whether their representatives take money under the table while preaching about patriotism on camera. They care about whether justice is for everyone or just for those who can buy it. The gallery quieted again, the words sinking deeper than the applause had. For a moment, Green sat speechless, the papers in her hands shook slightly. Trump avoided looking at her. Even Thomas remained silent, his hands clasped tightly. Crockett closed the folder and set it neatly aside, her final words like the closing of a courtroom record. Accountability isn't theater. It's the promise we made to the people. And promises, Congresswoman, do not vanish because you shout over them. The chamber stirred. Green sank back into her chair, muttering under her breath, but the damage was done. Her attempt to shield had backfired, leaving her exposed. Reporters' headlines were already forming. Crockett corners Green on campaign funds. Clips were being clipped, shared, spread across platforms within minutes. But even as Green sat subdued, another figure leaned forward. Trump. His eyes narrowed, his voice lower now, but sharp, preparing his last desperate line of attack. The room shifted once more, bracing itself. The final clash between Trump and Crockett was about to ignite. The chamber was still buzzing from Green's collapse when Trump leaned forward again. His face was tight, his voice lower, but sharper than before, like a blade pulled one last time. So, you think you've cornered us? He asked. Words slow, deliberate. You stand here with papers and accusations pretending you're the voice of law. But let me ask you, Congresswoman, do you believe you stand taller than justice itself? The words sliced through the room. Allies around him nodded, sensing this was his last stand. He wasn't shouting now. He was pressing, aiming for one defining moment where Crockett might stumble. Crockett didn't move right away. She let his question hang in the air. Let the weight of it echo off the chamber walls. Reporters froze, their pens hovering, waiting for her reply. She leaned forward, her voice calm, steady, carrying across the microphones with a gravity that matched his. Justice doesn't stand taller than the people. It doesn't kneel to titles, and it doesn't belong to those who mock it for power. Justice kneels only to truth. The line landed with the force of a verdict. The room fell silent. No laughter, no murmurs, just silence. Trump's jaw tightened. He opened his mouth to push back, but nothing came. For the first time, his hand stopped short of the desk, frozen mid-motion. Crockett continued, her tone unwavering. You call me a politician, you call me theater, but the only theater is watching leaders twist law into a shield for themselves. And the people watching, millions of them right now, are not here for theater. They are here for truth, and truth will outlast every interruption, every insult, every title. The gallery stirred, but no one spoke. It was as if the room itself had been stunned into stillness. Trump tried again, forcing the words out, you don't represent justice. You represent your own ambition. Crockett's eyes narrowed, her reply slicing clean. My ambition is the same as the Constitution's promise that no one, not even a president, not even a justice, stands above accountability. Gasps rippled through the chamber. The gavel struck once, twice, but even the chair's voice sounded drowned out by the echo of her words. Reporters scribbled furiously. Social feeds lit up with hashtags, number justice and truth. Number no one above accountability. Trump leaned back, exhaling sharply. His eyes flicked toward Thomas, toward Green, toward Vance, but none of them moved. None offered him a shield. He was alone in the silence. Crockett lowered her papers. Her final line almost a whisper, but carried like thunder across the microphones. You asked if I stand taller than justice. No, I stand with the people, and they stand taller than all of us. The silence that followed was absolute. Not a cough, not a shuffle, just silence. Millions watching at home felt it too. The kind of silence that isn't absence of sound, but the presence of weight, like a verdict being written in real time. The gavel struck again, harder now, the chair trying to regain control. But the chamber wasn't the same. The balance of power had shifted irreversibly. And as Trump sank back in his chair, his face pale with the effort of a battle slipping away, Crockett turned her gaze slowly across the Ds. Her eyes didn't rest on him alone. They swept across Thomas, across Green, across Vance. Every one of them silent now. The next word she would speak would not just close a duel. They would define the hearing. The room braced itself. The Hammond was about to begin. The silence from Trump lingered, heavy, unbroken. He shifted in his chair, eyes darting between his allies, but no rescue came. Not from Thomas, not from Vance, not from Green. They sat still, each weighed down by the words already delivered. Crockett adjusted the stack of documents before her, not hurried, not flustered. The cameras zoomed in on her calm face, the quiet rhythm of her movements contrasting with the storm that had filled the room minutes before. And then she leaned into her microphone, her voice steady, her eyes fixed on Clarence Thomas. Justice Thomas, she began. If the Supreme Court accepts gifts, if it hides flights and favors, is that justice? The chamber stirred, but Thomas did not answer. His lips pressed into a thin line. His silence was louder than denial. Crockett turned her gaze slowly, deliberately toward Trump. Mr. Trump, if a president mocks the law, if he treats the Constitution as theater, is that leadership? Trump's eyes narrowed, his jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Cameras caught the twitch at the corner of his mouth, the way his hand gripped the desk, but never moved forward. And then Crockett lifted her eyes, no longer looking at individuals, but at the entire chamber, at every lawmaker, every camera, every American watching from home. If the scales of justice tip for the powerful, if those entrusted to guard it bend it for themselves, what faith is left for the people? Her words fell like a verdict, heavy and final. The room froze. Even the gavel paused, suspended in the chair's hand, as if order itself had bowed to the weight of the question. 3 questions, 3 silences. Reporters scrambled to capture it, but their pens lagged behind the gravity of the moment. Millions watching across the nation felt it, too. The breath held, the pause that seemed to stretch forever. No one answered. Not Thomas, not Trump, not a single voice in the chamber. Crockett leaned back, her hands folded once more. Her expression calm, almost serene. She had not shouted, she had not raised her fist. She had asked 3 questions, and the silence had done the rest. The cameras swept across the Ds, capturing faces pale, eyes averted, hands trembling slightly on papers. The questions hung there, suspended, unscapable. And as the chair finally struck the gavel, calling for recess, the sound echoed, not as command, but as release. The room exhaled, but the silence inside still clung like a shadow. Across America, the clip would replay endlessly. Crockett's calm voice, the 3 questions, the frozen faces, the unanswered silence. It was the moment that defined the hearing. But outside the chamber, the real storm was only beginning. The gavel had fallen, but the silence lingered like smoke. 3 questions, no answers. The chamber emptied in uneasy murmurs. Reporters rushing out with notebooks clutched like evidence. But for millions watching, the hearing didn't end when the cameras pulled back. It was only beginning. Clips flooded every platform within minutes. Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube Shorts, all carried the same 90 seconds. Crockett's calm voice, the 3 questions, the frozen faces of Trump, Thomas, Green, and Vance. The silence was replayed again and again. Headlines erupted across the country. 3 questions, no answers. Crockett redifts the hearing. Trump Thomas silent as Crockett asks, what is justice? The day silence spoke louder than power. On cable news, anchors replayed the footage in slow motion, dissecting each pause, each glance away from the camera. Legal scholars weighed in, saying it was unprecedented to see a Supreme Court justice confronted so directly. Political analysts admitted Trump's words had landed, but Crockett's silence had prevailed. And outside the studio lights, ordinary Americans felt something stir. Farmers in Kansas, teachers in Detroit, nurses in Houston, young students in California. They replayed her words, debated them at dinner tables, in classrooms, in break rooms. Some cried quietly, some argued loudly, but nearly all agreed they had seen a rare moment when truth cut through noise. The hashtags trend globally. Number no time but truth. Number 1 a lean answer. Number justice for the people. In cities across the country, activists shared clips at rallies. In small towns, church groups discussed her questions during evening meetings. For once, it wasn't about sides. It was about trust, whether justice was still worthy of belief. And through it all, Crockett's 3 questions echoed like a refrain. If the court hides gifts, is that justice? If a president mocks the law, is that leadership? If the scales of justice tip for the powerful, what faith is left for the people? No one answered them in the chamber, but millions tried to answer them at home. Comment sections overflowed with voices from every corner of the nation. I'm watching from Ohio. And no, it isn't justice. California here, we need leaders who remember the law belongs to the people. Texas here, justice is only real when it's equal. Period. The comments weren't just reactions. They were a chorus, a reminder that truth doesn't sit only in Washington. It sits in the people who refuse to let silence mean surrender. And perhaps that was the meaning of it all. For decades, hearings had been noise grandstanding, posturing, sound bites crafted for the evening news. But in 55 minutes, one Congresswoman turned noise into silence and silence into a verdict. The final shot replayed on countless screens. Crockett leaning back, her hands folded, calm in the face of power. Not shouting, not flailing, just asking questions that no one dared answer. It was more than theater. It was more than politics. It was a mirror held up to the nation. Because when the highest offices cannot answer, when those entrusted to guard justice fall silent, the questions don't die. They grow louder. They echo into homes, into communities, into the very fabric of democracy. And the echo carried a message. Justice is not measured by titles. It is measured by truth. That is what made the hearing unforgettable. Not the insults, not the interruptions, but the reminder that in a democracy, silence from the powerful is itself an answer, and the people will decide what it means. As the feeds kept replaying, as headlines scrolled, as hashtags surged, one truth crystallized. Jasmine Crockett didn't just confront Trump, Thomas Green and Vance. She confronted the very idea that power can outlast accountability. Her closing question remains unanswered. But maybe that was the point, to force the nation, not just the chamber, to answer it. And in that answer, America found itself. So if you are listening now, wherever you are, New York, Georgia, Texas, California, know this. You are part of that answer. Justice is not a voice in Washington. It is your voice. Save this moment. Share it once. Ask it twice. Because justice doesn't need permission. It needs people. And today the people were watching.